The Team Never Quit podcast is brought to you by Navy Federal Credit Union. Members of Navy Federal can earn more and save more because at Navy Federal, our members are the mission.
A lady that's married to a frogman is essentially a frogman.
Sure. And which means they let you see what they want you to see.
Well, it's the only way to protect themselves.
They pick up the stuff we learn faster than we can use it.
I agree.
I've seen her do that. I thought I was the sneakiest bitch on the planet, man. I don't know nothing.
Oh, yeah.
And once I realized that, it made life a lot easier on me. I mean, I'm talking about it's like dealing with the CO.
I don't use it in a bad way. Every year, Marcus, when we first met, told me
she only tries to kill me like twice a year now. It's getting a lot better.
Stop.
Well, as long as you're asleep, who cares?
That's what I said too. You know, I mean, she does it the simple way with the.
But when we first met, he told me I would never be able to pull off a surprise on him. And so I took that as a personal challenge.
Has never let that up. Never let that go.
So every birthday, this will be the 14th birthday this year. And every year I have actually pulled off a surprise.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, there's been some really good ones.
Okay, you're beautiful, I'm ugly, you're smart, I'm dumb. I mean, I get it. I admit it openly.
I even got him one year to Hawaii. He did have a speech, and that was scheduled, but what he didn't know is I had like 18
all my crew was there. So
of his friends waiting for him when he got there because he didn't want to do the speech on his birthday. But
anybody ever put you in one of those where they put you in a situation you kind of buck up and you act like a dick, and then you get there and everyone's like, "Hey, surprise!" And then I felt bad. So then I'm in a bad mood because I was acting like an ass.
No,
I do that to myself. I don't know how I can't seem to break that.
It's never happened to me. It never will happen to me. It only happened to you.
I feel like some of this comes with that trident. There's some shit that comes with that thing.
I hate to say it, but yeah.
It is, right?
And
there's
that's
something that comes with that sucker.
The other part to that is
every team guy's laughing their ass off right now because they know what I'm talking about.
Well, and here's my point, though, is being a team guy doesn't end when you're not a team guy.
Yeah.
Because we make the same mistakes anyway.
That shit sticks on us.
Yeah. That's why when I tell you no, absolutely, you know I've been there. And anybody that will want to endure a relationship with one of us.
Oh, man. It's amazing. Yeah, bless you, honey.
I love you.
Yeah.
Beyond comprehension.
Your missus listens to this. That woman's a saint too.
Well,
especially, I mean, your ladies, you got lucky too. I got lucky as well, man. I got.
I'm not supposed to say this, but I have to say it, and I'll take the heat for it. When people talk to me about teams, or let's say Marcus comes up, I have to say that. I mean, I honor the teams. I'm very proud of the teams. I'm very proud of what they do, but not everybody's the same. Not every frogman is going to be Marcus. Sorry, but that's the way it is. And there are some guys that absorb more of the teams. They more of the essence, the important factors, the significant factors. And you'll know it because it's also part of their life, no matter what they do.
You see them, man. We point them out. Yeah. That guy is that. That's what he does. And we have, absolutely. We've talked about this too, man. We got psychopaths that literally sitting next to a psychiatrist, team guy. And they're having the best conversation, right? And then you guys, one guy, man, what did he do? No one knows. He was a bum before he got in. This kid was a billionaire's kid. And then they all have that personality in there. I was fortunate enough to have the one that can get around all of them. That's one of the blessings I got from the old man, was that.
Maybe that's where it comes from sometimes.
It is. No, absolutely. I figured that out, Yeah. People have said that to me, so I know it's a thing. And for whatever reason it is, I can see team guys for what their worth is. Yeah. And it freaking tickles the shit out of me, man. I have the best time with it. I know we got some brothers that would kill me just for fun. And I know that. They want to whip my ass just to prove they can do it. I get that too. Isn't that something? I'm like, dude, He wants to whip
Yeah.
my ass and it's everywhere. I can feel it when I walk in, and most of them even tell me. And I'm like, I know you do. I know you'd like to take a shot at me. I get it. Because if I was you, I'd want to take a shot at me. You know what I mean? And I understand that, and it's because of that I love my job, my position in the community.
But having said that too, I have to say it like this. I get away from that, and again, who was Marcus Luttrell and your brother? Who were these two kids that wanted to be SEALs and became great warriors? And I'd like to believe great people. I know that's true, but the point I'm trying to make is there was something about you two from the beginning that everyone wanted to do that. And where did that come from? And I mean that because, again, you carried that throughout your life as a responsibility. You're just what you're doing here. You give back. I remember when I started doing those videos that there were team guys, you don't do that. We don't talk about what we do.
Yeah.
You shouldn't do that. Well, I didn't do that because I thought I was going to be a TV star. I didn't do that because I thought I was going to make money. I did it because cops weren't getting the training. I needed to get them the training. And people are always asking about the workout. And what's funny about the videos too is I worked for the prosecution team for a short while on the O.J. Simpson trial.
Are you kidding me?
Oh, wow.
Really?
And one of the
Every time he
things
turns around, I was like, man, there's a reason why you kept getting moved, because you
always are with-
land in those for team guy perfect scenario kind of deal.
well, yeah, you could say it like that. I don't know, but one of the things Marcia Clark does, and when you become an expert witness in a case, let alone a huge case, it's very frightening.
Especially that was back in the day, man. When that's what changed television and the courtroom.
Well, I'll tell you, I wasn't frightened about anything, but the reason it's frightening is they're going to make you an expert. They have to know how we can validate this person as an expert in some walk of life. Well, the other side is going to take shots at you then. And I can tell you, in a case that big, any hole they can find, they're going to be able to say, this guy's not an expert.
Right.
Let alone the other part of our criminal justice system, where they're just going to find someone else who is equally an expert on the other side. So in the end, it becomes
I went to the same school as that dude.
Exactly.
That kind of when you see that
Exactly.
like, wait a minute, we were classmates.
It'll become circumstantial. So when it comes down to court, really what it comes down to, who's the better actor? Who will believe what he has to say more? But in this particular case, when they showed me the homicide photos and all the other tools they had, I clearly could tell, and I that sounds arrogant, I think. Let's just say it seemed very clear to me what had transpired. I could tell the order of the attack. I could tell the order of the strikes. I could tell that, yes, quite possibly this person didn't have the ability to raise their arm more. And so this is why these particular strikes were made. But what I was actually getting at more importantly was during the course of them qualifying me as an expert, I was brought in as use of force and edge weapons. That was important because in our day, still, there were only a couple suppressed weapons. Yeah. So Frogman it wasn't promoted, but they had to learn. And a lot of guys use a knife, but weren't really trained properly. Once again, we want to evolve and be trained more. So I put a lot of time on my own to understand these things. But at any rate, she said, Chris, you've done these training videos for law enforcement. The PT video was irrelevant in this case. She said, why have you never done a knife training video if you're an expert with a knife? And I said, well, ma'am, I can teach somebody to kill somebody and be deadly with a knife in a very short time. And when I say that, I mean 15 minutes, for God's sakes. Mm-hmm. How am I going to put that on a video with the non-discretionary nature of that? What would I do that for? Business? No. That's the only reason I stopped.
Yeah, think about that. Because back then, she was like, what, you make a movie about how to kill somebody?
Yeah, do you want me to train
you want me to
people?
do that?
The tactical videos in the beginning, I pulled a lot of information, but I wanted to be able to make sure there was enough for law enforcement to start,
sure,
and then go on, or
yeah, because they evolved themselves. That's the environment. I get that,
but that's why I left it, because they wanted me to do more advanced stuff. But that was just, it was interesting because a lot of people were very famous that were helping them. But not a lot of those people were willing to be an expert because they knew their background would be checked.
Fascinating.
I don't know what that would mean to other people because I'm not going to use any of those names. But the reason you don't know that I was involved in the case, if anyone remembers, was because towards the end there, they were having trouble with a juror.
Yeah.
And to put someone like myself on the stand, that's going to add at least another week to 2 weeks because my testimony might be a week and then they would cross-examine me for another week. Mm-hmm. And that meant that you could risk having a mistrial because
that's Johnny Cochran, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Johnny Cochran.
Well, let it be.
That man could throw it down.
That was a lesson a lot of
that
people,
man could throw it down.
People understand about the criminal justice system was.
That's when everyone learned that.
Well, I felt
was from that man.
I agreed with them. They said, we're not going to use you because we believe that the DNA is the case.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when it came online. That's when they started all that.
It was too new.
Too new.
So it didn't resonate.
They didn't know what it meant
with the jury.
They had no idea what it meant.
Instead, if the glove doesn't fit,
gotta quit.
And the reality, we all know that if you try to put a glove on that was wet, let alone blood, it's going to be tight and shriveled. It ain't going to fit. But anyway,
it didn't matter.
Anyway,
that guy was, dude.
Well, your videos inspired some of our best warriors of our generation to go into the teams. And I can tell you a personal story. JT Tummelson,
Gold Squadron guy.
On Gold, he was roommates with Morgan, Marcus's brother.
They're best friends.
And really close with this crew. And he was killed on Extortion 17. Mm. And when he died, a whole bunch of people went up to his family home in Iowa to be with his family until there was a funeral held. It was about roughly 2 weeks.
How we
were there.
We show up there. The whole crew showed up, took over the town to put him in the ground.
Dozens and dozens of people. It was a really big thing. There was a lot of people supporting the family. Anyway, when we walk into his, I'm talking traditional Iowa Midwest home. Great family, great neighbors. The whole town is just really down to earth and neat. We walk into that house and his bedroom is as is from high school.
Yeah.
Has not been
stuck
touched.
Like in a movie, just boom.
He was the only son. He had 2 sisters and they had not touched his room. So we walk in there and he has a little box TV. This is in 2010 and it's still his high school TV, his box TV, and a shelf with VHSs. And it's all your movies.
Hey,
your videos.
This guy was such a great guy that my mother, to this day, like right now, if you walk into her bedroom, there is a picture of him on her nightstand, and not me and my brother. It's not even on the nightstand; it's hung up on the wall.
Right next to Satan.
I'm not kidding. This guy was awesome. He was, dude. When we lost him,
he's a great guy.
Oh, dude.
I have that picture of you with Satan.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. And then boom, when we walked in
I just thought it was so funny when we walked in there. That was my first introduction to who you are because I saw all of these. I don't know how many there are, but it was the whole set of your videos. And then he also had Marcinko's books and any book you could find on being a Navy SEAL.
He had all those in there.
He had posters on his wall. It was all there.
You could tell it got whatever bit him hard because he had that's what happened to me too. All the pictures on the walls. That's all we consumed it. Just consumed his life. That's all we talked about. I remember we got his trident when we were going through all that. In the teams, we were team guys.
Yeah.
But he was one of the greatest warriors of this generation, and it was because of you.
Well, I don't know about that.
Yeah, no, that's the pass down now. That's how it works.
When you and your brother, from conversations with your brother, when you went through BUD/S, did it ever cross your mind that you weren't going to make it through BUD/S?
Oh, like make it through or quit?
Let's say quit.
No, that wasn't a problem.
Exactly.
That wasn't the problem. It was making it through there because you didn't want to get hurt or busted. They kind of
Okay, let's
But then you
take
gotta
that.
quit
Take that one more step. Did you feel that there would ever be an evolution that you might not be able to complete?
Now, death was always there, but it was like, just get out there and do it.
Absolutely.
That's how you just kind of, and with the instructors constantly bombarding you, like, hey, look, that ship out there, and they just called in here. They need a couple of good dudes. Anybody want to quit? You know, they're always,
Absolutely.
as they're whipping your ass.
Yes.
And it's when you're in your weakest moment and somebody delivers a word of not encouragement.
Yep. Yep.
And I don't care the strongest guy. If he's had his ass whipped over and over again for months and months and months,
Right.
it's just, and that's what they're looking for. And thank God your buddies are there because they're like, hey man, don't sweat it. We got this.
There's a video that surfaced.
You said that. I'm sorry, Mel.
Okay.
You said that about the buddy thing. I've heard you say that before, but that's why I asked the question. Not everybody can say that unequivocally, but there was nothing going to stop you.
That was where I was
You
supposed
were
to be.
doing it, and that was that.
I remember being in Hell Week during Around the World. I was sitting there rowing that boat.
Yep.
I looked over at my OIC and the guys in my boat, and I specifically said, hey guys, we're in the books. Like, we're in the movies right now. Like, the things that I read about in the books, we were doing it. I remember very vividly saying that. That's when it hit me. Hell Week, Around the World. I was like, dude, I'm trained to be a Navy SEAL. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't get that through my head.
There is a video that got sent to us early on when we were married, and I don't know where it is now, but one of the instructors had just gotten a handheld camcorder during Hell Week and was walking around. All we got was this little clip, but he walks over and Marcus's swim buddy or somebody had just quit.
I know that one.
Dude, that's
And
the toughest one ever.
I know that one.
Marcus is sitting under the boat. They're taking like a little break. There's the boats over their heads, but they're sitting.
We had a lean-to set up.
They're sitting down on the ground, and he looks bummed. I mean, he looks beat to crap. And the instructor just walks over and, Marcus, your best friend just quit. Are you gonna quit? And he goes, no, sir. I got more friends.
Good one.
And then he just
Spur of the moment.
kept going. The camcorder just goes
I
on
think
to the next
that
thing.
was one of the, when you were at, 'cause you ever think about it? I was like, no, but it did get thrown in my face. And it's tough when one of the guys you've been through a lot with goes down, because then that did hurt me or hit me. I felt it. Mm-hmm. And then I was just kind of sitting there. And then like I said, he wasn't one of my boys yet, that instructor, but he turned out he would have been, right? So it was good, the Almighty sending him over there to me, right? And being like, hey, it snapped me out of it right then and there. I think you can get tunnel visioned into something.
Sure.
If the environment, for whatever, I don't know what that's called, but I think that was happening to me. And he was just kind of like, hey, snap out of it.
Well, there's a lot going on at that time, too. But
It was midweek. It was bad part.
I'll tell you, my Around the World, I remember because I fell asleep and fell out of the boat.
Oh, no.
I saw somebody.
And I was
dude,
still
you could hear
rolling.
them scream.
I was
Still
rolling
rowing.
underwater.
Falling asleep into the water. You can hear them scream when that water hits them.
I had a guy quit.
Ah.
I had a guy quit in Rock Portage because this gives you an insight into the psychology because you got to go out. People don't know. You turn your raft over, you empty it out, in case you got water or drill, but it's really to get everybody cold, even though they want
Cold, wet, miserable.
You got to get back to the boat and come in. This guy, he jumped out of the boat and swam to shore because he didn't want to get out of the boat. And I'm thinking, what? He's coming back, isn't he? No, he's quitting. Well, you got to get wet to swim in the shore. What?
Think of the rationale that we've been put in that someone thinks like that. That's how chaotic it gets out there.
It's exactly right. It is so odd.
And it makes you think like that.
Well, I had the same experience in mind. We did our first 2-mile swim. I think it's 2 miles on the coast, not in the bay anymore.
No, yeah, when we move us over.
No rubber. You earned rubber on that one.
That's a swim.
Okay, so we're
Rubber Appreciation Day.
There you go. We're doing the first 2 mile, and what I didn't know at the time was I always run all my life since I was in 6th grade. I'd run almost 5 miles a day. It was just something that
You're a good runner?
it came natural to me.
Okay, check.
And it
My
was
brother's a good runner.
well, there you go. A lot of us are built for different purposes, and it was my peace of mind. But when it came to swimming, I didn't know how you do that. And if the water was cold,
That changes things too.
I never had that experience either. Now, both my two lieutenants were track runners at Duke, and they were big guys. They, East Coast guys, they knew that. I don't know where their experience came. So here we go. We're doing the first 2 mile swim. The water's 48 degrees. Now, that doesn't seem much to people, but if you're in 48 degrees without anything long enough, you're in trouble. Well, just like you, I'm so cold at this point. We're probably about 3/4 mile from finishing. I'm doggy paddling. I didn't know any better, but I knew if I could doggy paddle, I kept my core warmer. I wasn't doing it because I knew it. I was doing it because that came natural to feel it. So I'm doggy paddling it, but my swim buddy kept going slower and slower and slower. And I just knew if I got slower, I'm not going to make it. So I'm just going to keep swimming. And you're not supposed to leave your swim buddy. And you go back to dealing with Mike Thornton. Every time I saw Mike, he'd call me, hey, swim buddy. We lost that in the later classes. To Mike, we call each other brother, but them it was swim buddy, swim buddy. Yeah. And so I knew though that I'm doing something wrong here because you're not supposed to leave him.
Yeah.
But I'm not quitting either. And so here I am doggy paddling. Next thing you know, his hand goes up and I'm thinking, oh, son of a bitch. Because now the boat's going to come and get me because you can't leave the swim buddy.
Yeah.
And so I'm still doggy paddling. I'm hoping they're not going to see me.
Yeah.
I just want to get in end, and if they yell at me for leaving my swim buddy, hey, quit. It wasn't me. Well, no, the boat came up and picked me up. I got on that boat, and I was scurrying around for the littlest part of sunshine I could find because I was freezing. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, please, no one knows this, so don't repeat it. Please don't put me back in the water because I don't know if I want to go. I was so cold, and sure enough, we got up to the next swim buddy and thanked the force above or whatever force it was, and it was a good friend of mine, another lieutenant, little tiny dude, little Irish leprechaun guy, Scotty Reeves, and he was iron cross. He wasn't moving the water, he was just frozen.
It's still in the water? Yep, on top? Yeah, I've seen that.
Yep.
Iron crossed out? Yeah.
Guys grabbed and pulled him in the boat, pulled his swim buddy in the boat, and that's when they said, this swim's over. And as it turned out, they weren't supposed to put in the water if it was under 50 degrees.
Right? 52 or 50?
Well, it might be 52
I thought it was 52.
now. It was 50.
48 will kill you.
Yep.
48 degrees will kill you if you're not suited up and going through the numbers on that.
And so now what was Bud's response to this swim? So I forget the number that didn't succeed in the swim. Of course, my lieutenants, Mr. Lindsay and Neil, they got through it just fine, and I get in, and the word is this: we will have the swim tomorrow. And those of you that want to make the swim tomorrow, no failure, you'll be fine. Those of you that don't, you're done. Ring out. And they came over and said, Chris, what happened? I said, I never did a 2 mile swim before, so I was pacing myself, but it took me so long I was freezing. I said, you don't pace yourself in a swim. You never pace yourself. And if it's cold water, you just get in the water, you swim as hard as you can until it's done. And I thought, oh, I didn't know that. Hence, once again, maybe the instructor's trying to find out who had the ability and the knowledge without it. But that
those mind rig
swim.
games every time. They do it with the runs, all that, man.
So did your swim buddy quit?
I paced myself in the runs, but no, next day the water was 50 degrees. I got in the water. I swam so fast. It was probably my fastest swim ever. Did got out, done, no worries. But that was my example, just like that. Boy, it's a hard one because they're always talking about protect your brothers, be with your brother. But this is a guy who was quitting, and I wasn't going to do it.
I remember when we had to do the wetsuit appreciation swim because we had actually got to do a few of them before that, and they pulled it away from us. And having to swim 2 miles without it changes everything.
Yep.
And if you got some guys, because I would always, if you don't know how to swim, like my swim buddy, he would get so pissed at me because I wasn't a fast runner, but then the swim came around. That's why they put us together.
Yep.
And that respect is like, hey, you got one guy who's good at something and the other guy's not. That's pair him up.
Absolutely.
And that's what they did to us.
That's actually what Mr. Thomas did to me in our first platoon. He made me carry the M60. Normally the 60 is a big guy.
Big guy, yeah.
I wasn't a big guy, but
and Bud, you weren't big?
I could run like the wind, so he figured I'll give you the 60, then you'll have to be slowed down to the rest of us.
Yeah.
And it kind of worked.
you have so much perspective on life because you have gone through the teams. You were there for the beginning of SEAL Team 6. You were there when law enforcement was a lot different than it is today.
Sure.
Then you went in, you've had so many different interesting parts of your life. You've done personal security.
We've been on the movie set.
And so I want to get into that really quick.
Sure.
So
That's right?
yeah, the movie set.
It was the first time we ever met was on the set.
Yep.
So where we came across you was on the set of Lone Survivor, and you were an advisor for that. How did you get into that role and get into the movie world?
Well, let's say it was a surprise to me. I mean, Marcus's guys in Marcus's time, they did things differently than I did. Not everything, but some things. And I was a much older guy, so why would they want me on that? It actually came from doing those videos. There was some TV show that came out, and they were looking for this kind of people, and they sent a notice to the people that I did the videos with, and they contacted me, said, hey, you should think about this show. And that show was, it was called One Man Army.
Are you looking for something that works like magic? From noise-canceling headphones to air conditioning in the hot Texas summer heat, some things just make life a little bit easier. But what about selling? Well, Shopify is like having your own magic wand. Many years ago, when we first started Team Never Quit, we had no clue how to set up online shops and everything that goes into it. But fast forward to now, and we are selling with ease and even expanding our inventory with no issues. All thanks to Shopify. Shopify supports your journey from launching your first shop to hitting those milestone orders. Whether you're selling scented soaps or outdoor outfits, and even if you're in the service industry, Shopify has got you covered. Convert browsers into buyers with Shopify's best converting checkout, and with Shopify Magic, you can sell more with less effort. That's right, that is my favorite feature too, because they boost your sales by a whopping 36% compared to other companies. Shopify powers 10% of US e-commerce and backs brands like Allbirds or Rothy's. Plus, their award-winning support guide gives you success. Are you ready to experience Shopify's magic? Sign up for a $1 trial at shopify.com/TNQ. Go grow your business no matter what stage you're in at shopify.com/TNQ.
And it was a very interesting experience. It was my first TV show, and I've done quite a few since. Not needless to say, all of them went anywhere. But the point was, why did I do that show? I can't even tell you why. I just know that they said, they gave me this premise. And I thought, well, they're looking for people. Okay, I'll give it a shot. But what no one knew was that the other people on the show were much younger, and I had already lost my eyesight, meaning that, I could split hairs in teams, but when you get a little older, I ended up being farsighted, so I couldn't see the front side of a handgun. In the security world, shortly after that, optical sights came out, and that put me back in the game again. But hey, the difference between splitting hairs and being able to hit the target wasn't that great. So, security-wise, I was fine. But at any rate, what happened is, long story short, there were SEAL advisors on that TV show. And I'll never forget the day, because what happened is, well, I lost right off the bat. I think I was the first guy to get kicked off this show. And they asked me to stay on, though, to help, because there were some problems with the show. And during that time was when the younger, I'm basically sitting there reading, and I'm thinking, what have I done? Because the way it worked was they had this one evolution where you had to shoot 40 millimeter, which one of my favorite weapons, the 203. Only it was like an M79.
79?
Yeah, just it was a
Single, right? Yeah, yeah.
a single weapon
Yeah,
instead
yeah,
of
yeah.
B-attack. But the problem is, how do you make a 40 millimeter round for Hollywood?
Yeah.
And the reality is, all the rounds were horrible. So the thing with a 40 millimeter for folks is that it's kind of like lofting a softball. You can't really use sights. You have to gauge it. It's more of a physical thing where you're gauging the round. Well, all these rounds perform differently. So one, I wasn't clear on what the target was, but two, even once I realized what the target was, getting around in there was very difficult. But I was a frogman, and I never quit. And I just kept going, and it was down to the last round, and the last round hit. And so the next thing was, you're supposed to do this run, and they were very clear that we weren't allowed to wear running shoes. Some guy got to wear running shoes, so I wasn't unsure what that was about, but I ended up pulling a hamstring. Again, I'm older now, and these things started happening to me. So, what was it? It was, I forget, there was something that I ended up losing on. And at the time, I think we had to do the shooting course, and what people didn't know is in the teams and at 6, I shot out a vehicle a lot, and I cleaned house on the vehicle, but I was shooting a rifle that had a red dot. So it was like, okay, I can see this, and it was easy. And there were good targets and bad targets. I'm going to tell you this, whether there's liability to this now or not. I'm sure the quote statute of limitations of that contract are well up. But what happened was, I was like, I don't know. It was a significant time ahead of the other guys, but the other guys that were other branches of the military, won't say what that was, actually shot all the targets. So they shot good guys and bad guys. I shot one good guy by accident, and I remember when, because they made you fire full auto, and I know the round drifted. So now the point is, oh, this is going to become a TV show, and we have these other guys that shot all the people, and now we are at war.
Yeah.
Your war. That's not going to look good. So they were kind of asking for my help, and how do we handle this, and what do we do on this? And by that time, I forget what evolution it was that I end up not completing. And I think it was like the two last guys maybe of the 40 millimeter thing had to compete, and the competition now was now 11:30 after the whole day, so it's 11:30 at night, and I have to fire a handgun. It was a Beretta at these clay pigeons, and they have this great big white screen, which I am closest to. It's like 20 foot high. And they gave me a gun with white sights, were painted white by the screen. I forget what color my clay pigeons were, but I couldn't see the front sight to save my life. So what do you do? And they kept telling me off the camera. I had glasses, but the guy that was my handler had my glasses, and they weren't going to wait. So a lot of people felt that it was just use my name and make sure he didn't win kind of thing. I don't know that that's necessarily true, but point was, they kept telling me, shoot, shoot. I wouldn't train that way. If I can't see my target, I'm not shooting. I don't shoot to make noise. I didn't shoot. And I lost. So the next day, they asked me, because they had now solved the problem. This can't happen this way. It's supposed to be the premiere episode. They ended up not showing that episode till the third time. But also something happened during that time that's more relevant. But I don't let me lose, because this is how it started, how I got on Marcus's show, from meeting these kids. But what happened was, this dude, bin Laden, got captured. You see, in the old days, when I made those videos, I thank you for asking, because I wouldn't have gone here without that. The old days, there wasn't computers then. Mm-hmm. Wow, am I like moving my car with my feet, right? So in the old days, you said what teams you were on. That's it. I mean, if you were on UDT 11 and 12, or I was on 11, then I went to 22, that's what you said. So I was on SEAL Team 1 and SEAL Team 6. No one knew what 6 was unless you were in the teams, but those were the teams I was on. Well, what was that? How many years later, the bin Laden thing happened? Now all of a sudden, SEAL Team 6 is known.
And they made gold coins after them dudes.
Everybody wanted to know about this. So you go to the internet. What the fuck is the internet?
Right?
You look up SEAL Team 6 and what you see is Richard Marcinko and me. Like, my name didn't be there. And people would call me, news people call me and say, hey man, I'm not the guy you want to talk to. You talk to Richard Marcinko or my other dear friend, Denny Chalker, who was a plank owner at 6. I'm what they call a second round draft pick. I was too young.
That's what he called y'all.
Well,
Right?
yep.
Yeah.
And the point was, though, that all of a sudden now, SEAL Team 6 is a commodity.
Yeah.
And guys wanted to own that. And then they became very petty on, well, even if you were on 6, you weren't there that long. And I'm sure down the road it won't be too far where guys are going to say, well, you weren't on the bin Laden raid.
Oh, gosh.
But it made me feel bad, for sure, because I didn't set out. And had I to do it all over again, I got to be honest with you guys, I probably wouldn't even say I was a SEAL ever. I'd rather people know me for just who I am. And when I would do classes after that, I'd say, hey, look, don't listen to what I'm saying, because listen to what I'm saying if it makes sense.
Right.
And anyway, that's how that all came to be. And by that time, that's when some people wanted to make a big deal about it, too.
They couldn't help that.
Yeah.
That was the go.
So I hear him the next day. I'm a little bummed out. You know, no one's ever going to know that probably twice the age of guys on the show in my eyes. I couldn't see the front sight. And screw you, I'm not going to shoot if I can't see the target. We don't make noise. There are a couple times in maneuvers where you might use something where you'll fire a mag to gain fire superiority. But other than that, we count our rounds because ammunition is the most important thing. So each round has to count. We don't make noise. And we don't just shoot and hope we hit somebody. We hit somebody.
I only fired to freak out twice.
Well, but don't get me wrong. What you just said, though, is you knew what you were doing and you did it for a reason. Anyway, so I'm reading a book and I hear, hey, almost the quintessential, psst, psst, and there's a little kid in the bushes. And I look over. Well, this is your friend and mine, a very wonderful young man who was a very, very, I'm probably should find another word, but is gifted SEAL, and that was Ray Mendoza.
We love Ray.
Absolutely.
We're all big fans of Ray Mendoza around here.
My first meeting, and Ray he's whispering to me from the bushes. He was an advisor on this one-man army show, and he said, hey, I just want to come down and introduce myself. And it was, he'll probably never know what that timing was, because here I am thinking, how am I going to explain this to the skipper, and how is this going to come out? And I can't say anything about it. He was so kind, and I just think the world of that young man. Always wish him the best.
You know what?
And
we should just talk bad about it just because, man. Just because it's a freaking good dude.
Ray,
you know what I mean?
Marcus and Ray were on Team
Yeah,
5 together.
there you go.
And they were very close.
Ray
So,
and his partner, who is
love that
now
guy.
a successful writer,
Yeah.
Mark Simos,
yeah.
He's great. Man,
they were together on that show, and they're the ones that approached me, and they told me about you, and they told me about the project. And they said, you know, we want you there because we want one of the older guys there that, I'm not saying that maybe the actors would be difficult, but a young actor and a young frogman.
That's a
might
deadly
not have the
combination.
weight.
That's a deadly combination. Either it can go real, real good or real good, that kind of thing.
There it is.
And I remember when you walked on, I'll never forget it. When you had the cave pants on, that gray shirt, and those black glasses. Mm-hmm. The wild thing looking.
Yeah. Well, my head's round.
And your head was round. and clean shave. I'll never forget that. And I was like, who the? Look at, and they said who you were, and I knew who that was. And because Harry Humphreys was the only guy I knew in that realm. Like, he kind of pulled us all in there. He was the anchor man in there.
Yeah.
Were you out there when we killed all the actors with the paintball gun? Yeah, he was.
I don't know about the paintball games, but you were there when they were doing the
when Emil
practice
shot Johnny Hoffman in the face with that.
I was.
Is that one of the most terrifying? Remember that?
Yeah.
I think that was Emil that did that. We were out there with simunition rounds, doing a drill out in the wood in the mountains.
Yep.
And I mean, it was. We called the index on it. We everything to stop, and then all of a sudden this round went. Somebody shot a round, a bullet, and then you hear this SEAL coming down the mountain, crusty. God, dude, even when he was in a good mood, that man's scary. And he was like, "Which one of you sons of bitches?" You know, doing this. He's bleeding from the eyes, like he's bleeding from the eye, which he bleeds from his eyes when he gets mad, right?
Well,
so
he's kind of fair-skinned dude.
he is.
Yep.
And Emil shot him in the face, dude, and cut him. I'll never forget that. The look on his face, even he was scared. We were all scared. You know, a couple of them crusty team guys, and they get fired up. It's just maybe I could whip him, but it'd take a forever. You know what I mean? Them kind of guys. What a great time that was.
Yeah,
I mean, just having the stack that we had. Because we had protection from high ground, the Navy and the Warcom signed off on that. When they moved all those team guys in there, we were allowed to be there.
Yep.
That's completely different. When we know we have protection and top cover, we'll act accordingly and do what we're supposed to be doing. And they stacked us from Vietnam up. So that was the best time just being around those frogs.
It meant so much to Marcus that you were on that.
Oh, man. I talk about it all the time.
It truly was my pleasure to be part of something like that, and it says so much about both of you in being able to tell something that needed to be told, and so I was very fortunate, and that's where it started. Yeah.
We had those actors for a couple months before we started filming, beating the snot out of them up there on the mountain in that range. That was fun.
Yes.
I mean, we turned them guys into something.
Yes.
Those four.
I don't think that's a common thing.
They don't. I've heard that. I still talk to all of them. And nobody grabbed them like we did. Because we weren't even playing around. That was serious when we were there, and we actually got told that. So
We did a show later, Ray and Mark, and they asked me to be on it again, and it was with probably some of the best NFL players in the world. And it was really strange for me. We had Drew Brees. We had Clay Matthews.
Big fan of the Breeze.
We had Jared Allen and Larry Fitzgerald. And wonderful experience. But they weren't told anything. The football players were told, you're just going to go shoot guns with some SEALs. Well, the reality of it was, once they get there, they're going to be with us for 24 hours. We created an entire scenario. We had a Huey come in to fly them. We had a sniper significant. We had bad guys with simunitions. They weren't told they were simunitions. It was an incredible show, and this was for the a computer game company. And it dawned on me at one point because they wanted me to show a knife takedown of a sentry. And they wanted me to show some other fighting skills. And I kept having to demonstrate them. And Drew Brees, all of them just they were like wanting to be sponges. Well, the first opening scene, they kind of gave me. Mark said, create this the way you want. I said, okay. And the way we were supposed to do this is kind of just lay down the law, okay? So I went home and I wrote that scene and came out and basically didn't give them a whole lot of respect as football players because they weren't football players anymore. They were trying to be us, and explained to them that this is going to be a different world for you guys. And the scene ends and I walked away, and my young lady was on the set as the doctor, and I went and sat down by my bike. Whenever I need to be more emotionally strong, I ride the bike.
It helps. It's a very motivating instrument.
Your bikes, I noticed in the garage.
They're there. I have
a little bit of dust.
It is.
Well, we've had pollen season. Now give me a break on that, damn it. I
little bit of dust. So I sat down, and the next thing you know, Drew Brees comes walking out of the tent. He was the only one with this contingent. This is all going to explain the situation, man. He comes out, and he's surrounded by these people. None of the other guys had all these people. And my young lady goes, uh-oh, this doesn't look good. And sure enough, production people, all the big wheels saw it. Everybody, they were panicking. He's coming out, didn't like that scene. I didn't treat them right, or maybe I was disrespectful or something. And he's headed to me. Or thinking, so I figured, well, what's new? I F this one up. And he came over and he said, I just want to shake your hand. What a collective sigh of relief, at which he proceeded to shake all of our hands and tell us just how much he thought about our service and everything like that. And it was the greatest experience and show you can imagine. It was absolutely, it didn't glorify war. It wasn't nothing like that, but it was just crazy.
Yeah.
And we put these guys through this thing. At one point, I had to do the knife skill, and Larry Fitzgerald wanted to know that. I don't know why, but this guy was an amazing guy and one of the nicest, super intelligent guy. And I show him this, and when we film it, he goes up to the actor and he slipped and fell down and then jumped up and got me. And he came out, did you see it? Did you see it? I got it done. He was so proud.
Aww.
And I thought, oh my God, we can't film. We don't want people to think we're teaching these guys to enjoy this. And it wasn't that at all.
Yeah, no,
but then one thing that happened in the end was, and this was all from my training, we did a down pilot thing. A little time for you guys, but this was it. And they kind of gave me that task on the project. The other thing was man down.
Yeah.
Got to have a man down.
Yeah.
So Mark Simos plays the man down, and of course Mark was 180 pounds soaking wet, I think. None of those guys could carry Mark more than 10 yards at the end of this thing.
Really?
There's a different story
The guy that
altogether.
ended up carrying him for the filming, of all the people, was the quarterback, Drew Brees.
He has some heart and passion. We've been able to meet him.
Yeah,
and
kind of a big
get
fan
to
of him
know
and the family.
Yeah.
Let me tell you,
He's a
I've
saint for
never
sure.
met the family, but I
They're great.
had a lot of time with him on that project.
Great.
I was extremely impressed with him. I really, really enjoyed that. And they told us in the end, I mean, I love Jared Allen too. He was just
All
a
those guys, that
monster of
lineup
a
you
guy.
said,
Right?
that's a good one.
Yeah, that's
But
Fitz, all the
they
guys.
told us in the end, you said, you know something? And Clay Matthews said it first. He goes, what we do for like a 5-second burst, and that's it. And then we're breathing and we're resting. You guys are doing this the entire time. It was a great appreciation to understand what it really takes, the physicality of everything.
Yeah. I heard it said, it's like, imagine if the football play lasted till you actually scored the touchdown. That's kind of what's
Imagine.
without stopping.
without
at
stopping.
all.
That's kind of what's
Yeah.
like for us.
That's
It's like
exactly right.
It starts and then it goes to one of us touchdown. Right.
So then at one point, every time I'm trying to do the knife work with Larry Fitzgerald, I keep telling production, don't film this, and I'd move somewhere else. And then all the other football players wanted to see it. And so finally I'm trying to do this drill, and in this one case, because Drew Brees is not, he's my height, he's 6'1", but on the field he looks like a short guy. So I have to take the back of his knee out to bring him down the height to perform the proper
But they
task.
lost their minds. You mess around with that knee.
Well, I didn't do it. I didn't do it because I was.
No, that had to have happened.
Well,
Would have happened.
and here was the moral of the story. I went to do that. I said, "Oh, wait a minute! I'm not doing that, Mr. Brees. This is the way this works." No, it's okay, Chris. No friggin' way.
The fact that they picked them. Go ahead.
Well, what happened is, it was an unbelievable show. It was a very big budget. All of a sudden, it was supposed to air before playoffs that year. It was going to be huge. We'd end up doing hockey players, baseball players. It'd be great. And nothing. And then I find out why. Why did Drew Brees have all those people around him? Never dawned on me. But afterwards, it was like seeing, the end of the movie first, and then you see why. Drew Brees, I told him I wanted Huey. We flew Drew Brees, and he was going to be like the sniper. Wait a minute. We got Drew Brees on a Huey. And you mentioned that's what brought it up. When we did your movie, we put so much time in live fire with real actors. Now, no one in the world,
The look on their face the first time we shot at them.
no one in the world trains like we do
No,
live
absolutely
fire.
not. Right? No.
So
We got guys get shot all the time because of it.
We're very skilled at protecting people. We know what to do. It's not just enough to be able to grab somebody. You got to know how to grab
Yeah, that's right.
right? So it's second nature to us, but no one else knows that. Well, the reason Mr. Brees had all those people around him because football people were on strike, and I didn't know it.
Oh.
And they had us film this while they were on strike. So when it came to being aired, the NFL said,
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying.
"What? You did what? When?" Not going to happen.
Yeah, they probably lose their minds anyways because when those athletes try to go do something like that.
So it can never be aired?
It aired a couple times at some obscure time on like MTV2 just to justify the expense because it was well over $1 million to do the thing.
That's too bad.
But it was so sad because the fans of those guys,
Yeah.
oh, they would have gone apeshit. They did so well.
Oh my gosh.
And it I know that after that, people tried to do these shows and they did them poorly, and it almost was glorifying war, and everybody critiqued it, and that ruined that attempt at that genre forever. But what we did with those guys,
Too bad. Yeah, you gotta have the right.
they
guys,
were
man.
so respectful of the military. It was showing what it's like to do the job. It wasn't to glorify it at all.
Right.
It was to show the difference
Yeah.
in the aspect. It was quite an experience. I'm not sure what prompted that to bring up, but it was kind of me meeting the guys and doing the shows. And
I love the combination of the former SEALs or former military and Hollywood. I love that there's like an infiltration of military in the behind the scenes
We have way too much fun with them.
of Hollywood. It just makes movies more real, and I don't know. There's more passion, and even shows or whatever.
I absolutely agree with you. And we talked about this earlier, but I'm gonna have to say something on that one. I found this really interesting. Recently, there was an article because of the Oscars, and Steven Spielberg made a point about Tom Hanks' acceptance speech when he won the Oscar for Philadelphia. And Tom Hanks had a comment that, well, if I were to do the film today, it probably wouldn't be me. When you read on, what he was saying was that today Hollywood has made more an effort that if there's a role that's to be played by a Native American, it should be a Native American. And so he's basically saying that if my role was a gay man that had AIDS, the actor should be a gay man. And I thought, I take difference with you, Mr. Hanks.
Mm-hmm.
You are one of the finest actors
Great actor.
in the world, next to John Wayne. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, you can give a shout out to the Duke in here, man.
Yeah.
John Wayne.
We can do a whole episode on John Wayne right now.
They're
If you
trying
want,
to
man.
say the Duke was not an actor; he was a personality.
Oh
Whatever.
my gosh.
Have you ever wished you could have the good stuff both ways? Like red wine, but without the next morning headache? Well, a common misconception is that we think that looking sharp means sacrificing the comfort for starchy or stiff chinos or anything like that. But I am here to tell you that it is possible to have it both ways, thanks to Mack Weldon. I've been rocking the black and white polo nonstop. And don't even get me started about their underwear. Oh my goodness. After I got my first pair, I had to go back and get 6 more just because of how cool, dry, and comfortable they are all day long. With Mack Weldon, it's about understated elegance that speaks volume. Crafted from cutting-edge materials, their classic designs prioritize comfort without compromising on style. Forget the flashy outfits. Mack Weldon offers sleek, sophisticated outfits that integrate seamlessly into your wardrobe. Their products are an absolute game changer. Get the timeless look with modern comfort from Mack Weldon. Go to mackweldon.com to get your 20% off and use code TNQ. That is MackWeldon.com and use the code TNQ at checkout.
But
That's the same thing.
But my point was to that, say, okay, Mr. Hanks, if that's true, then why don't I have more military people playing military people? Why don't I have more cops playing cops? You tell me we don't have that? No, it's because the industry didn't want them. And to your point, I think it would make a difference. And I'm pretty sure there are military people that can act. And I'm pretty sure there are very few. There are a couple that made it in Hollywood. But maybe that'll change someday because, you know, I'm used to watching a guy like Lee Marvin, Eddie Arnold, so many actors, Jimmy Stewart. You know, they served our country. I mean, even Elvis served our country. And
Morgan Freeman.
people still have heroes
Got to
that
give a shout out to
Is
God.
he in the military?
Yeah,
say it again.
Morgan Freeman.
That's right. That's right. People still have heroes that dodge the military. And I'm sorry, if it were me, I'm going to tell you, there's another thing that I just don't want to ruin your show. Just make sure people know this is me. These opinions are not fostered by the
What's
producer.
that disclaimer thing? We got to read it real fast, though, right?
These are the opinions of their fruitcake guest in that case. But if it were me, everyone when they reached 18 should do 2 years of service. They don't have to be in the military. They could do a forest ranger. They could work for the park
Uniform services.
I
We completely agree with that.
Why
I don't
not?
care if you go work in a hospital, if you work in the forest rangers, if you straight up
Peace
military grab
Corps. It could be
Peace Corps.
That's right.
We need an American humanitarian services. So like dress up. I think the problem is our guys get sent over with the rifles in a uniform, and then our humanitarians get sent over with the same uniform and rifle. Well, that could be separate.
Absolutely.
I mean, we have the
Absolutely.
mechanisms, the ships, the hardware, and everything to implement that. And I think we're at a time where that probably be a good thing.
People should understand what it means to serve and what it means to give something back, because all these people live anyway.
Well, then you can bitch.
It's hard for
Then
us.
you can complain.
There you go. That is
Then
exactly
you can
the
complain.
point. There you go.
Absolutely. If you saddled up for anything, then that is absolutely you're right. And for those who haven't, I mean, when y'all come, just know that people who serve in the uniform, they that's what they're thinking.
Okay, here goes controversy. You brought it up, so I'm going to finish it. Boy, I never thought we were going to get here. If you want to take a knee during the national anthem, all I want to say to you is, I was raised that if I'm going to have a complaint, I should also have the solution.
Yes.
I'm not just going to make a complaint. And I need people to understand something. I was a frogman, and I was a law enforcement officer. I wore a badge in New York, New Jersey, South Florida. So I went from call to call with my gun out. All I can say is this. The problems we are having are because of training. And if half of these people that made more money than God would take that under consideration, these departments are not paramilitary organizations. They're businesses. They have budget crisis. They don't have the money to do the training. Mm-hmm. I did a SWAT school one time. Again, this was for Mr. Marcinko's company, and it was a very eye-opening situation. It never would have dawned on me in a million years. I always tried to have a great degree of humility when we're teaching. And so I would tell people that, hey, okay, I was a frogman, but you could do exactly what I could do. I'm not from Mars. But then this happened. So we were doing the SWAT. I never close off a SWAT school. Anybody, I mean, not civilians, but anyone can observe, from the department officer or the chief or whomever, bean counters. So we're doing this school, and the chief pulled me aside one day. Generally, you couldn't find one department that could afford the training, so it was always a combination of departments that would add to and give them the training. And that's good and bad. The bad part is, well, you can only move as fast as the slowest guy, but I always tried to find ways I'd take guys aside and give them a little extra if I thought they were more high speed. But this one day, a chief came up to me and he said, Chris, I have a problem. I said, yes, chief. He had 2 guys in this class, I think. He said, I know what you're doing is right. I know the tactics are right, and I know what you're saying is right. And this was specific to, let's just say, room entry. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I think it was room entry. And he said, but Chris, I don't have those kind of guys. And I don't have the budget to train them to that level or the time. Is there anything else you could do? And boy, to take a line from Apocalypse Now, it was like a diamond bullet that hit me right in the forehead. I realized that humility is important, but sometimes you have to face the truth that what we do and how we do it is because we can do it, and not everybody can do it. We are the most physical military unit in the world. I mean, the guys are going to hate me after this. I went to Green Beret School. I put a good amount of time on the Army side of the house.
I've been over there.
And when you watch Black Hawk Down, you see the guys are wearing UDT shorts, blue and gold. Why? Because we make our own decisions. We're not as regimented. We have more freedom.
Gypsy camp of bastards, man.
We're a smaller unit. You can turn that boat a little quicker.
Yeah.
And they're going to hate me from now on. Don't get me wrong. The Army side is the best operators in the world. They have more money, and they're great guys. But they evolved. When we started 6, we were competing with the Delta guys. And let me tell you something. Those guys can hit a gnat in the ass at 100 meters, you bet. But you made them swim and run. That changed things a little bit. And we had this crazy climb that was at the original team. And I remember, anyway, the point is, but we said something there that I wanted to wind that down with, and I lost it again. I'm sorry.
Take your time, because I'll sit there and make fun of Green Berets and Rangers all day long if you want.
No. Well, you know that.
Nobody. They rescued me, and they saved my ass more, and the Marine Corps.
I'll tell you.
But I'll still deal it out though. Because they do.
That was the one time I was embarrassed. We were doing something that was in again the Cold War time. Weren't told why we were there. And I was working with a special forces team. There were 3 Green Beret. There were a couple of, in those days, the Air Force were combined. So they're combat control guys, which for the audience, these are the guys that control aircraft.
Hey, man, they're great. Yeah, the CC combat controllers.
Platinum.
Yeah. And the PJs, the Air Force PJs.
Well, today they're combined. They're combined. But then
no one knows about them dudes.
Well,
they're still on the down low.
That's true. Their day will come, I suppose. And then it was the 3 SEALs, and 4 of us, I think, and we're all young except for the chief, and we're riding in the back of this thing. What's significant about this, though, is the one Green Beret guy, his name was Mark Smith, and in those days he was lieutenant. I didn't know what the mission is about, and no one could care. I'm sure at this point I'm not giving out a secret, but I'll tell you again, it was one of those things that happened when I was young, and I wished I would have known them, but that's not the way it worked. Major Mark Smith was very well known later years, became a major, and he was one of the foremost experts in the efforts of POW recovery from Vietnam.
That's cool.
And we were in southern Thailand, and we were flying, and we were doing a special thing where we would parachute in all these countries, but I really think in the end, he was doing the job, and if we found him, we were going to go. And here I am being the dumbass young kid, and I went to Green Beret School, like I said, and I'm just being a smartass, and I said, "Hey, Chief, what's their motto?" Because you got the arch and the arrows, and for me, I said, "What is that? Espresso de Liberace?"
I said the same thing.
Is that
the espresso? What? I did the same thing.
Drinking coffee with Liberace, and it didn't go over well with the Army guys. And my chief was in stitches, but that wasn't it. And then I said, "Chief, do we have a motto?" This is an X-rated motto, so please have the kids leave. Well, I can't even say it.
Just say it. We can.
No, I can't say it. But it was something very bulbous, something slammus somewhere, and I couldn't believe he said it. And of course, I was half hysterical and half falling down. All the other SEALs, Air Force guys were lying, and the Green Beret guys were just completely stoic looking at me. And the respect I should have had for, because when I found out later who Mark Smith was and his efforts, I was honored at one time in my life to be that close, even though it didn't happen. And I think of it every day. But to have people like that are in our community, we get exposed to. I just say, if you ever hear about this, forgive me. I was a young, smart ass. I know that for sure. But I meant well.
That's how you know SEAL respects you, because we talk about you. Everyone talks about it. We don't talk about people unless we respect you. So if we're out here witty about the Marine Corps or a certain Green Beret, that's how we show our respect.
Yep. I agree with you.
Period. Otherwise, we won't say a damn thing about you. We won't bring you up, compare ourselves to you. We don't do that.
I agree.
But if we're sitting there slamming you on open microphone, you're as solid as they come.
Well said. And
That's just the way it is.
it's good that you did say it like that. It's hard to explain that sometimes.
Oh, they know it. They freaking know it.
Speaking of, and we can use this as a segue to wrap up, but this was the perfect tee up to talk about Mike Thornton and Tommy Norris.
Oh, geez, I got some news. And to remind your audience, you did a show with Mike Thornton, and he's done one with Tommy. Have you ever talked to Tommy? Did you?
I
Oh,
did
okay.
have
Well,
one.
when I was in law enforcement, somebody brought up Tommy Norris. Tommy had been retired by that time, but he would give talks, and I don't think he does that anymore. And I have never heard so much about someone giving a talk as when they've heard Tommy Norris speak.
Good. Those two together.
When
you see them together, you're like, what? Because these are our Medal of Honor, or a couple of them.
Yeah.
Michael Thornton, Tommy Norris. Michael Thornton had his Medal of Honor first. No.
well,
Tommy did, right?
He was put in, but
Yeah. And then he rescued one of the guys rescued the other guy to get his Medal of Honor.
that never happened in American history, and I don't think people understand what that's about. But Mike Thornton is when you've said it once, and I said it when I think I wrote that book, but when you're younger in those days, you walk across the team quarterdeck, whether it was UDT or SEAL team or all SEAL team in your day, and they have
Every one of them.
the notation of our Medal of Honor recipients
With their
right
picture
there.
sitting right there. You stare at them every time you walk in.
And you read that, and you read what these guys did, and it was just something that you read that and you say, man, I don't even know that I'm deserving of being
Yeah.
part
It
of
reminds
this.
you of the house you're living in.
They should give me a trident that's like made of wood for a while, I shouldn't wear the same thing those guys wore. And so later on, fortunately, Mike was still on UDT when I was on SEAL Team 1. Didn't really get to know him that well, but I saw him. And then at 6, he was away most of the time that I was there. But we still knew of each other, and Mr. Marcinko put us together many times. And so anyway, I've had the great pleasure of having Mike as a friend. And
That's a tall order because he still hazes me every time he sees me.
well,
But you're a
he
new guy
loves
to
you.
him.
That's how he calls me. I don't even think he knows my name.
well, listen, he deletes my phone number by accident.
He
all
won't
the
answer
time.
my phone call for nothing.
I bet you he deletes your phone by accident.
I'm sure. And then he'll call me pissed off because I don't call him.
Exactly.
But funny story, because he lives around here.
Okay.
And when Marcus was a young man, college
He got a hold of me.
age, yeah,
Before I was even in. Yeah, he's one that.
before Marcus went into the SEAL teams, Mike Thornton was drinking with Marcus's dad at the bar.
Whoa!
Yeah.
How
They were buddies.
cool is that?
Yeah.
They were buddies at the bar.
And I told him, I was like,
cool
hey, I'm
is
thinking
that?
about being a SEAL. He's like, he kind of looked me up and down, and he called me. He goes, if I was there, I'd make you quit. That's what he said to me. Like, he's never looked at me.
Oh, well,
Like, even when he's talking to me, like, there'd be I was at one of his events a couple times where he's dressed up.
Yep.
He's still a new guy. Shut the fuck up.
yeah, but it's in
Isn't that awesome?
it's in good humor. But he
No, it's not. No, it's not. It's team guy humor, which I love it. I'm always there.
well, that's what I mean.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
I freaking
Well,
dude, mad respect
Mike
for that
Thornton
man.
Did a stint as a buds instructor.
Yeah, I heard.
Yeah, and
Can you imagine having to deal with that?
I cannot attest to this, and this may very well be a rumor. I'll tell you a story later that is not a rumor, but I think he ran into a little bit of trouble one time when, what did we call it? The slow guys? Was it the circus?
The Goon Squad.
Oh, okay. Goon Squad for you guys. For us, it was some kind of circus because if you're too slow, they made you do all these stupid tricks, look like you were a dog in a circus.
Yeah.
Well, and
we
Mike-
changed the name.
Mike's day, there was a rumor that went around that a slow kid got tied to a Jeep
Oh my
and
gosh.
kind of dragged around the beach a little bit.
I heard
don't
some
know
stories
that,
about him being an instructor. Can you imagine him?
But can you imagine talking to Mike after this and saying,
Oh yeah, right.
because Mike, he doesn't put in for anything. He goes wherever he wants to. I mean, people don't understand. If you have the Medal of Honor, of course, I think the Navy Cross should be right there too, in my opinion. But everybody else has to salute you, including the president, generals, everybody. You salute that man with that medal, and you damn well should. But how do you talk to Mike and say, Mike, you are a wonderful instructor. Is there any place else that you'd like to go? I mean, you're great at this. Don't get me wrong, but I think we could use you more somewhere.
Because he didn't give a damn before the medal.
Oh, God.
So then when he got that power added to him, I mean, didn't you just kind of like...
Can you imagine if the decision to be a frogman was based on Mike's opinion alone? Just stand these guys in front of you. I don't think any of us would be here.
Nobody.
Mike would have said, dude, I know you've been around a long time. Your hair's a little long, but
look, and this isn't one of those things where he's like, oh, he's a team guy talking smack. You probably didn't do it. This guy could sling it. Like he's a badass, like a real one, and everybody knows it.
That's right. Well, I tell you guys the one story that was a real one, and no, I'm not going to. Mike is beyond words.
Okay, so all right, they're making a movie though about the scenario.
For years, that story, Tommy Norris's story, where he was awarded the Medal of Honor, is what Mr. Norris did. Just him and virtually one other South Vietnamese fella did. They rescued 2 out of 3 downed pilots behind enemy lines over weeks by themselves through heavy enemy controlled areas and under fire many times. It's you couldn't imagine to write the story better, but they did it for real. And it just, if you're not familiar with Tom Norris, but what happened in short of that, to wrap up the story, is in the end, this is the end of Vietnam. So I kind of want to set it up like this. Picture it like this. Vietnam was a hellacious war for our people. A lot of politics were involved in that. That's sad. It shouldn't be in war. But everybody forgets in World War II, we wanted to end the war, so we ended it with a heavy hand. Right. Well, I don't believe there should be rules in war. Get it done, be friends later. Again, hate me, I'm fine. There's plenty of haters out there for me anyway. Of course, I probably shouldn't make more, but it'll happen without me trying. Now, this is the end of the Vietnam War. There was one more mission left for SEAL Team, figuratively here, and everyone else is heading south and going back home. These guys are heading north. They're going back into it, and they're going back into it alone. And as often is the case for the teams, it doesn't go well. It goes wrong. And it wasn't their fault it went wrong. It was the way it was. In the course of that, Mr. Norris receives, we kind of, with all due respect, call it a reverse JFK. He gets hit with an AK round, a rifle round in the eye, comes out the back of his skull. Mike Thornton, and I can't go into all the details of the mission, and I shouldn't. I wasn't there, but you can read the book and hear them on video. They finally believed in telling their story, because remember, Mike and Tommy were part of the time when you don't talk about anything. No one writes books. You don't do that. Dick was the first one to write a book and break that barrier, but you got to know, when Mr. Marcinko wrote his book, he was in prison over charges that were later cleared, and he didn't have any money. He was in dire straits. He did that to survive. And he never told any secrets, by the way. The Navy told all the secrets to prosecute him, because I went off on the side.
Yeah.
But that's another day. But let's just say this: one of the things that Mr. Marcinko was true to form on is he believed in the guys 100% and taking care of the guys. He didn't even have a budget to run 6, so he did whatever he had to do to train our guys to make sure our guys would survive. That's the bottom line on that, believe it or not. But if you weren't there, you can't say. Back to Mike. Now there was two South Vietnamese with Mike and Tommy Norris. There were a couple other people, but they're not going to be mentioned right now. These two South Vietnamese guys, after this intense gunfight come back to Mike Thornton, and Mike Thornton looks at them and basically, where's Tommy? The Vietnamese for lieutenant was Dai Huy. And they then reported to Mike that Tommy's dead. So it was very easy at that point for Mike to say, okay, let's deed him out. Let's escape and evade. The ocean's right there. Let's hit the water. But there's no way that Frogman's going to do that. And I do believe that SEAL Team is truly, I'm going to say this wrong, so let me try and say it. SEAL Team has never left anyone behind, ever. I'm aware of one incident in Vietnam where they left a guy for a night under an ambush. They knew he was dead and they had to get out of there. He came back the next day and got his body. We've never left anybody. Not a lot of people can say that. But it wasn't even a question to Mike Thornton. He then had to brave through, especially now the delay, the enemy's come closer. He braved through and was literally fighting hand to hand, got to Tommy Norris and now sees the wound and realizes that Mr. Norris has passed. And Mike picks him up. And the minute Mike goes to pick him up to take his body home, Tommy Norris starts talking.
Oh my God.
Not only does he start talking, he's asking, he wants a sit rep, a situation report. Where are the guys? What is happening? Yeah. Mike keeps telling him to shut up, basically, because I need to think about what I'm doing. And he fights.
Don't talk to me right now.
That's right. Not a good time, Tommy.
Not a good time.
Tommy keeps going. He fights his way through back to the other guys, and now clearly the only choice was to hit the water. Big Mike has Tommy.
He's huge. By the way, these two, when I say standoff distance, man, they're freaking. Mike Thornton is a huge man.
And he still is.
Still big.
Yep.
Still big guy.
Thick. Yeah.
Yeah. No neck, just looks like he was designed for that.
And he was.
And he was.
Very few times can we say a special operator is a natural.
Natural, yeah. I agree with you 100%.
When I first started working with him on this project, I was surprised that he still doesn't even wear hearing aids. I mean, his ears were still good enough.
Still good.
Which I just can't believe. But at any rate, Mike swims for approximately, and I think it was over 3 hours, with Tommy Norris on his back. Now remember, this guy's got a wound where brain matter is exposed. Oh. And one of the South Vietnamese guys on the extraction was shot. So Mike has him in front of him. He's swimming him, Tommy Norris on his back, and the other guy, fortunately, was swimming next to him.
He was shot, too.
He was fragged a lot.
Yeah.
He was in the middle of so much. Yeah. And he made it. He swam out of the Delta where they were finally picked up by a frigate. And believe it or not, Mr. Norris survives. And they say that the fact that, as we know, the ocean is almost like saline solution, and that probably was helping keeping Tommy alive and irrigating the wound. Well, what people don't know is that Tommy Norris, not only did Tommy Norris survive, but, and you can imagine many surgeries later, Tommy Norris couldn't come back to the Navy, but he decided to challenge the FBI. And I believe it was William Webster was in charge of the FBI at the time, and said, I want to be an agent. And Webster basically said, if you can pass the same physical that everyone else can passes, I will give you a waiver, because Tommy Norris lost his eye. And believe it or not, Tommy Norris did, and became the first FBI agent ever hired with a disability. And
his ass got shot again.
He did some great work.
That guy did amazing work in the FBI.
Great work, and finally retired from the Bureau. And I don't need to describe this kind of man to you anymore. But again, who was this guy that wanted to be a SEAL in the first place? Because let's face it, Tommy Norris was still in his early 20s when he was done in the Navy.
God, when he walks up on you, man, he wouldn't expect that.
Because of who he was.
Yeah.
So Mike was awarded the Medal of Honor that day for saving Tommy Norris, when quite easily anybody else would have made the decision, oh, well, they said he was dead anyway, but he wouldn't let that. And it took almost 40 years for us to convince them to write the book. And then there was only one other story that's never been told, Marcus's story. Now we've got Mike and Tommy's. I wanted Mr. Marcinko's story to be told someday. It's a hard sell.
Yeah.
But finally, I was approached by some people that knew me from some other projects, and they believed they had some people that were real people that were interested in doing a Mike Thornton, Tommy Norris film. And now it's between me and Mike. And I told them, I said, look, I am not going to go to Mike Thornton on this unless I know this is real. Because Mike has been approached by a lot of people.
Sure.
And at that time, I think Mike told me that it was Mel Gibson and one of Mel Gibson's writers that were interested. And I'd always ask Mike, oh, yeah, I saw him a little while ago. They talked about. But I said, Mike, there's been 3 years and nothing's happening, you know. And finally, the guys told me who was behind this. And originally, it was Mr. Stallone. And I still believe he is behind it. And they also now have Amazon.
Well, all right,
That is
congratulations.
backing it financially. So now I think it's a real deal. And the cool thing on top of that even is, who the hell are you going to get to play Mike Thornton? John Wayne's dead.
Denzel?
Yeah.
Who would you? Yeah, I mean, who would you even get to play him?
So enter the gentleman who is now playing the Jack Reacher role, Alan Rickson.
Alan, right?
Yep. And Alan.
He does a great job in that show, by the way. I watched it for the first time. I haven't
with
seen
you.
the second season.
Yep.
Big fan of that guy.
I'll tell you, I think it's a great show.
He can pull that off.
It's well written.
Yeah, it's extremely
And he
well
is.
written.
He's a perfect guy to play Big Mike, I think.
Whoever writes that has a great sense of humor.
Well, I'm not sure if I'm at liberty to tell you, but I will tell you this. We know who this writer is, and he's no stranger to the military projects, and he's no stranger to writing a hell of a story. And remember, all of these things are based on the incident, so there's going to be some artistic liberties here and there, I suppose, but my only hope is that, you know, it tells more about the guys than just about the incident, because there's so much to understand about who the hell is Tommy Norris? Why did he do this? And coming from the mission that he just did, and Big Mike, to be the natural and to do what he was able to do, and why. It's not about the war. It's not about politics. It's not about Vietnam. I said this, and I think Mike was about to kill me. It was in front of Mr. Stallone. We had this meeting, and I said, you know, I even shouldn't say it here, but it was almost about a love story between brothers in arms. And there was no way in hell that Mike was going to leave Tommy there, dead or alive. And, you know, I could say those words very easily, but no one knows what they would do unless they were in that position. Mm-hmm. And he did it. And that's all we can say about it. Not only did he did it, but it wasn't easy. It wasn't like you pulled them in the cover and you were good to go. No, they had to survive. And anyway, it's a true testament to the teams, to how we're trained. And my point to that is what you've done and what the young men continue to do today to make the teams. I just like to remind them every now and then, it's not me, war frogmen, what we've done and why they did it. To remember guys like Big Mike, because everything we do comes from things that they taught us.
Sure.
And Tommy. And some guys forget that. You know, it's easy. Everybody wants to be king, and once you're trained, well, I was a natural. I learned that myself. Not necessarily the case. And so it's kind of a reminder.
I wasn't that guy. Mm-hmm. I was never that guy. I'm pretty upfront about that.
No, I absolutely know that.
Yeah.
But people don't get to see that. Let's face it. You know, we had 3 Medal of Honors that went out in Vietnam.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's hope it makes it.
You have to die to get that in our community almost. I mean, very rarely do they pass it out to a living one.
I don't think people understand that aspect of it, and that is that during warfare, the missions that SEAL team gets, almost all are high medal or Medal of Honor missions for any other military unit. So for a SEAL to be awarded any of these senior medals, and don't get me wrong, it's not about medals. We're talking about
the action,
a validation for something they did and why they did it, really. So in lieu of that, we have to say something about the medal as an acknowledgement. And so it's very hard for frogmen to get that, because every day are those kind of missions. So when it happens, you know it's something really special.
I think your name has to be Michael too, because we have a bunch, like with three of them, three Medal of Honor Michaels.
Michael and M. I'll give it to the M.
Okay, so Marcus is a big one too. If you get a Michael and a Marcus together, we're in trouble. Them dudes, we will jump off if you have a Michael and a Marcus together.
This is the scoop for this show. No one's been told about this yet. I'm probably going to get in trouble, and that may cost me. But we're really excited about Amazon producing this, along with Mr. Stallone's company and the movie of Mike Thornton and Tommy Norris.
How's Mr. Stallone?
I don't know what. I'll tell you what, I only had the pleasure of meeting him one time with Mike, and he met us at his home, which he's now sold, probably because Mike was there. But Mike
probably. I keep going. I know exactly what you're saying.
I'm just kidding. And we met at his home, and people told us, the other producer people that were there, he never does that. He was very, very kind. He was very, very respectful. And I think at this point in his life, I really like the fact that here's a man that has done really well as an actor in his own right, and everything that he's done. But he stood by his guns, like, making Rocky. They were willing to write it, but they wanted someone to act it. And he said, no, you're going to have me. And he's done a lot in the military, let's face it. And so this is his opportunity to make something.
He was one of my pillars in life. He's taught me a lot.
Well, and you got to appreciate that. And let's face it, I'll make more enemies on this one too. Actors portray people, and I'm okay. If an actor does a great job, I definitely acknowledge the work and love what they say. I mean, I'm not going to cross the street to shake the hand, because it's just not where I'm from. But I'll cross the street and shake the hand of a warrior any day of the week for what he did and what he believes in. I'm not trying to say something wrong, but what I am saying is Mr. Stallone acknowledged this, and he acknowledged where he's been in life, and it was just something that doesn't come easy, I don't think.
I watched that documentary on him the other day.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
I watched it. I've always been a fan of his, and I love his work. Yeah, but then he explains that. Yep. You see how hard it is to do what he did? That in itself
absolutely
is a fire, man.
He was very committed to Mike's story, and he was very respectful. And
if he signs up for something, I imagine that's just how he is. It'd probably be a blessing. Like, that guy shows up, Stallone, he puts everything he's got into it.
Oh, I absolutely agree. Absolutely. I'm so excited, and that was what it was. The guys weren't going to tell me who was behind it in the first place. Before I brought it to Mike, they had to tell me. And when we told me it was him, and then I brought it to Mike, we convinced Mike to give it some thought, even though he had a little bit of allegiance. And I'll tell you something, when it comes to Mike, honor is a big thing.
Yeah.
And he would have cut his nose off to spite his face. But this was real, and no one else had signed him to anything. And so these guys jumped on it. It's taken a while. Hollywood's gone through some bad periods. We had COVID, and then we had some other political issues. But hopefully it'll happen. And all I can say is...
No, I'm ready for the City of Angels to get back online.
Well...
I mean, we love movies.
Yeah, enough's enough. They I mean, we've all been through a lot. And when they came offline, we all felt it.
And we love movies about heroes. So seeing that
makes people feel good.
This is really cool, and thank you for sharing.
I also like, and this is something I hope comes out of this. I'd like people to realize that there are people in the world that make the hard decision. Mm-hmm. There aren't a lot of people walk that path. But when it comes down to the right thing, something has to be said about that kind of character. I think it's lost a little bit today. I don't want people to, I'm not saying they should, die over the right decision, but let's say it's few and far between people that will step up. Everybody can step up when it's easy.
Yeah.
But doing right is important. And you don't do right as an investment in the hereafter. You do right because it's right.
Yeah.
You don't do right because someone's watching. You do right because it's right. We were raised that way. And, it goes back to a coward dies 1,000 deaths. We all know we're going to die sooner or later. And Japanese make that a big thing, that to die because, it was honor, it's a horrible thing, but you controlled that death.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's part of who we are, and it's part of the teams. We know it's there. The teams never makes that any surprise or secret.
Pretty upfront about that.
SEAL team kills more people in peacetime than anyone has a clue.
We're pretty upfront about that whole
just
thing.
Training.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of it to me. It always was that, well, I'm going to die sooner or later anyway. I'd rather have some control and some choice, some say in how I'm going to die. And the other part to that is, I think we all, and I know this about you and your brother, when given the choice to have to live knowing that you backed out of something or you didn't make the choice where you stood up, is haunting. We know that, and we're not going to do that. You've lived that, and that's why I would just like to see how you can make that statement in such a way that it's not just a war picture, and that hopefully it will draw more young people to just have an example of options and what it's like to be someone like that.
Yeah.
So that's my half
We
on
definitely look up to Mike Thornton and Tommy Norris and you and everyone that's come before.
That's what you're for.
Yeah. That's,
Where else are we going to look?
That was another thing I was really about Mike and Tommy. They created the playbook for us. That's really something.
I set the stamp, the mold, the freaking imprint of what we're supposed to be like.
Follow those footprints.
Somebody had to set it.
We stood on the shoulders of those giants, but they're the ones. And when I think of the special team and what Mr. Marcinko did, he built a car that everyone else just put a key in and turned it on. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of people that felt, that he was extreme and this and the other thing, but you got to understand the whole story and the fight that it takes to be on that path. And back to Big Mike and Tom, I just hope that it's a film where we can get other people interested in seeing it.
Oh, I think it will be.
Yeah,
I think it'll do great because now you've got people our age where it's our parents that were in Vietnam, and we want to see that. And the
grandkids are on the ground.
Yeah,
They'll
the
definitely
grandkids want to
that.
see it because they don't know. So
that's how they learn.
Well, the key is to get other people that don't have any kind of military in their family to have some reason to go to the theater, see it, and hopefully they'll get something out of it.
Yeah.
Well, I grew up with no one close to me that was in the military.
Oh.
But my dad loved the military. So even though his dad was too young to be in World War II, so it just didn't work out. Like the ages in my family, it never worked out. But my dad, the first movie he ever took me to was Platoon.
How about that?
I think I was 4 or 5.
God.
And he was a single dad. And so here's this very young man. He was probably 25. And me in the movie theater watching Platoon. So there's even people like us that have no tie to the military at all, but we're super passionate about it. And we love honoring them and learning about them. So I think there's a lot more of those people than you realize.
Well, that's so nice to hear. It really. Oh well, I'm pretty sure you didn't get too much from Willem Dafoe at 4 years old, but you watch it again.
I did. How about that, man?
I always think of
Oh, it's a great movie.
I always think of the teams as the cross of William Dafoe and
Barnes.
he's-
Tom Berenger.
I saw many of Frogman that were leaders as I was coming in that were a combination of both those guys, and I saw that dichotomy a lot.
He did a real good job of pointing that out in that movie.
Oh, it was.
I think that the whole movie is the character, individual characters in that wartime environment.
and you know, and Tom Berenger's role was not something psychotic as much as it was a difference.
Sure.
A difference.
Because then you got Charlie in there, and he brought what he brought, and he's the one that got me into SEAL teams. Charlie Sheen.
Well, that is very important that you said it because it ties up the whole thing.
Yeah.
You know, and why people my age still. Well, I wasn't exposed to John Wayne because I went to John Wayne movie or saw it. My parents exposed me to that, and there was a reason for that. And the that's why we're so critical of Hollywood because we know the power it has. I just like it to be the right way.
Exactly.
I geared my whole mentality around Charlie Sheen's attitude from that movie. And matter of fact, one of the guys in the movie I did a platoon with him. He was an extra on there, actually. He played God. So,
Bill Paxton.
dude, that man, I miss him so much. That freaking guy.
One of my
I was watching True Lies yesterday.
Was the advisor on that first movie, and I was going to 6 then, and he let me come. I went to one or 2 days of the shooting. It was interesting. Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming out and sharing all of this.
Guys,
with us.
thank you for your patience
was great.
with somebody that has as much mileage as I do. I'm sorry that I lost track, but
No,
it was
truly.
Perfect.
truly an honor being here and seeing the magic. That team never quit, because believe me, I'm not even sure if they know what that word means.
The Q. Welcome to the Q.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much.
Good job, brother.
That was perfect.
Okay, guys.
This is the Team Never Quit podcast. So buckle up, Buttercup.